We have here with us Katharine Lam, Senior Lecturer in Piano and Pedagogy. Katharine's got quite a profile in the UK, and this year was called upon by the BBC to adjudicate panellists competing in BBC Young Musician of the Year. So that was quite impressive. And joining on Katharine on this panel group, we've got students from the Conservatoire. They've each attended this new health and wellbeing programme that Professor Shirley Thompson was talking about earlier. That's been developed between the Conservatoire and the School of Nursing and Midwifery. And we have Zac, who you've already heard, plays the flute. Camila and Sarah are both pianists. And Arianne is actually a trombonist, but she's in the US. But she is going to be here through a video recording that she's made because she wanted to share her experience. So I'd like to start really with Katharine, who I'd like to try and understand so that the audience can understand how you initiated this idea. What's the backdrop to this whole story?
So hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope during this panel group you get a feel of what it's like to be a musician, of our life, preparing for live performance, the sort of fantastic performance Zac and Charlie gave us at the start. And during my time, both as a musician myself and as a teacher, I've been very aware of how each of us prepares for performance differently. And there's some performers who love performing. They are exhilarated by the experience. It absolutely fits them like a glove, and you know, any opportunity to be on stage, that's great. There's a larger proportion of musicians who find that live performance, understandably, is nerve-wracking. So findings and research on performance anxiety come up with different figures for the amount of musicians that suffer from performance anxiety, ranging from 15 to 50% of musicians experiencing some form of performance anxiety, significant, to 96% of musicians experiencing some form of stress, if you like, in the lead up to a performance. So that's the basis. My basis was trying to find a way to help musicians, help our students gain important confidence and resilience, and how really to get, I hear them sometimes, my students, at their absolute best in the teaching room or in the practice room. And it doesn't always correlate to how we end up then performing on stage. So that was the background. And a number of years ago, I became acquainted with the Intelligent Behaviour Analytics Framework and Adam's work as a colleague in the health faculty. And simply put, this framework is a tool for greater self-understanding and understanding of others. So when I'd digested and understood this framework to a degree of depth, I started to realize that this would really help musicians in their search for performing at their absolute best and communicating with power and impact, really, and giving of themselves of self-expression in their performance. So just as another small aside, the world of music performance anxiety techniques and coaching has developed hugely over the last couple of decades, informed quite a lot by the traditional sports psychology, which is much more established. So it's quite common and normal for sports people to see a sports coach so that they perform at their best under pressure. For musicians, it hasn't always been something that has been commonplace. And actually, there's been a degree of people feeling that it's something you hide, you don't speak about. So thankfully, that's changing, and there is a lot more open conversation now about performance anxiety. But my experience of performance anxiety techniques was such that there is a range of techniques, different mindsets, different things you can do, and they're all great. But unless you see individually a performance coach and invest quite a lot of time in going through this process, sometimes it's quite hit and miss, because you go through a process of trying this technique and trying this and changing your mindset in this manner and in this manner. And quite often, a lot of these techniques might not work for you as an individual because we are all different. This adds a further complicating factor. We can be left then feeling, oh, what's wrong with me? My teacher suggested this, my friend does this. The person I admire on stage in an interview said they do this. I've tried it and it doesn't work for me. What's wrong with me? And we're in a worse place, if you like, by that point. So I had felt my idea in approaching Adam to run this program together was if we start with self-understanding, if we start with deep knowledge of ourselves, what motivates us, what we need under pressure, where we are under favourable pressure, where it tips into pressure that we actually are struggling to cope with, where that point is, what we can do, we will be in an ideal place to cut this process down so it's less hit and miss, it's not so long drawn out, and students, musicians, can absolutely understand that's why that works. I understand me. I need that. I need that. I'm now not feeling ashamed that this doesn't work for me because I can see why it works for my friend because they're like that and I'm not like that. So really, that's the basis behind it. It started in 2019, 2020, and we're on to our third year now. And the students we have here today, all of whom you will hear perform throughout the day, have been either on this year or on last year's cohort.
Okay, thank you, Katharine. So I think we'll throw it to the three of you. And before we do, let's try and pick up Arianne. Let's just get a feel of what she is saying now in the States. Can we run the first video about why did she join the RBC program?
I came into the program because I actually felt like I had not a lot of self-confidence as a musician and just personally, and I struggled to understand kind of myself, and I didn't let myself access a lot of how I was feeling. And more as a musician, I had performance anxiety and anxieties about being a musician and kind of having that confidence being a musician as well, and feeling like I was deserving of like being a musician in a sense. So yeah, I definitely felt like I just needed to understand myself better.
Let's throw it to the three of you. You all saw the program advertised. Camila, we'll start with your good self. What sparked you into coming onto it?
Mm-hmm. So I've always been nervous about playing in front of an audience. And normally it's part of a musician's training to play from memory. When I was 8 years old, I had my first memory lapse during a live performance, and I couldn't finish the piece. After that, this problem was constant over the years, and I didn't know how to solve it. And then I talked about this with my piano teacher, and at the time he said that I just to spend more time in front of a piano practicing the pieces. But that didn't work for me. So, and also over the years, many people told me maybe I should reconsider my career choice, because maybe it wasn't for me, because if I'm an artist, I should enjoy being on stage. So, fortunately, Katharine, some months ago, told me about this program, and I thought maybe I should try to see if I can finally solve this problem.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go into talk to Sarah. What about you?
I joined the program because I was having a lot of sort of doubts, both in myself and as a performer, where how I was feeling on a day-to-day basis with my mental health would sort of affect my ability to even sit down and work at the piano, because if something went wrong at that day at practice, it would then sort of get into your head and like affect me like with my mental health. And I think I wanted to sort of separate that, like how I perform and how I practice, as being something that can help me as a person, not just like bring me down. So I wanted to sort of just learn how to really approach performance and practice with a healthier mindset, I think, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. Zac, what about you?
I think for me, I've always enjoyed performing, and I've always sort of taken every opportunity available. But the one thing that eluded me over the years was that sense that I couldn't quite 100% replicate what I could do in the practice room and in front of my teacher on stage. And I'm a very competitive person. I like things to be perfect, which comes as no surprise to Katharine and Adam, or my parents either for that matter, caused them great frustration over the years. But that sort of wanting to, I wanted more, and I saw this as an opportunity to go and learn about myself and understand which areas of my personality and the way my brain works that I was perhaps neglecting, and that I could then adapt the way I prepared for performance.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's go back to Arianne then, and we'll go for another question. What were the positive outcomes of the programme for her? So let's listen to her.
I think the biggest takeaway is just being able to understand myself, and just having all of that information given to me so I can assess my situation a lot and really connect with myself. And understanding my natural self was really, really beneficial to me, and really made me realise actually it's okay to respond the way that I respond to things, and that I kind of am who I am in that sense, and that other people are different, and that's okay too. The forum is really beneficial to help me access my feelings and emotions. As I say, I was very closed off, and I didn't want to kind of access it, I guess, out of fear of what I might learn about myself, or if I would, not be happy with how I reacted. But actually the forums just gives you that structure to kind of look at yourself in more individual aspects. So the physical self is probably one of the easiest I find to access, because it's more everyday and it's very outwardly, and you can measure it a lot easier. But then actually taking that time to explore the more emotional and spiritual rooms has really helped me just connect with myself, and I feel kind of more comfortable within myself day to day. As a musician, I definitely felt more confident when I've been performing lately. And I believe that my social skills, interacting with other musicians, has improved because I have that confidence within myself now. So with everything in my own personal practice and my preparation now, I think I found it so beneficial to do this course, and I wouldn't have found that out about myself, because although you're kind of doing it as a class and you're learning together, it's such a personalised experience. And for me, I found all of these techniques, though they were being taught to everybody and not everybody picked up on the same techniques that I did, it still feels so personalised to me. And doing the course makes me feel like I'd almost had one-to-one sessions, even though I was in a group, because some of the advice was so tailored and felt so personal and resonated with me so strongly. And I saw it in other students as well, other advice that I necessarily didn't think would benefit me. I really saw it resonate in them, and seeing them also find the way that their performances can be enhanced, and that their performance anxiety was dealt with in the sessions, was just really interesting and incredible to see.
Okay. Turn it the other way around now. Sarah, you kick off. What would you think the positive outcomes for you from attending this?
I think I became a lot more confident in that I know what's best for myself when it comes to a performance. Beforehand, I might let my parents maybe help me and deal with some things, but I found that really stressful. They would ask too many questions or want to check with me that everything was okay when I knew everything was okay. So I think definitely having that confidence, and I did a recital over the summer, and I think I weirded out my mum a bit. I would be there sort of repeating affirmations to myself that everything was going to be okay, and she'd be trying to ask me something, I was ignoring her. But I knew it was because I knew exactly what I needed to do then to go out and do the performance, and it was sort of that confidence that I have it within myself to do it. And I think that's something the programme really helped me to see, was knowing that that part of myself is okay, and also lots of visualisation in how to go out and do a really good performance.
Thank you. Camila?
Yeah, so this program made me realize even more how everyone is unique, and depending on the person and on their personality traits, there are also different tools that each person can use to overcome performance anxiety. it also made me realize that there is nothing wrong with the way I am about being extremely nervous when I had to play. I just had to find the right approach and the right preparation in order to feel a little bit more comfortable playing. So this program showed me which tools I can use to prepare beforehand where I'm in a situation that I feel under pressure.
Thank you. Zac?
I think for me, the biggest thing was realising that advice I was given very early on in my musical training, great advice, depending on the personality, did not suit me. So I realised that the advice I'd been given of before a performance, you're going to sit backstage on a chair, still, being calm, sort of contemplating, that's not for me at all. I want to be having a conversation with my friend, having a few jokes, doing something non-related. And then when being on stage, I was also told, don't be quite so loud and energetic, sort of, take a step back, almost a step back from yourself. Don't let the audience see that side of yourself. So when I was on stage, in one respect, I was stepping back with my personality, and on the other mental preparation side, my attention to detail, I let that run away with itself to the point where it would cause me stress. So I've got these two sides of my personality fighting with each other. And what the program allowed me to do was, A, understand those in no uncertain terms, because before it was just, what are these feelings? I don't understand where they come from. I understood where they came from, why they were there. And shortly after I'd completed the pilot program, I played in a performance class and I took on board everything I'd learnt. And I held these two sides in balance with each other. And I gave what I would say to that day was the best performance of my life. And that was sort of helped by the fact that all of my peers and tutors remarked on how different the performance was. And one of my friends said to me, I've never seen you play like that. She's like, what have you had for breakfast? How have you done that? It was a different, completely different side to my playing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go back to Arianne on a third question. How do you think other students would benefit from attending this program? So let's hear what Arianne has to say to that.
I think even for, musicians and non-musicians, it's a really incredible and beneficial program because it just really highlights, like the inner aspects of yourself which other people may never see in you or you may never really understand about yourself. And specifically for musics or another conservatoire student, with the performance anxiety aspect, it can really just level up your playing because you have that kind of calmness and that understanding and that confidence behind you. And to have that just from understanding your own needs better is, it's really rewarding and really just exciting to experience.
Okay, Zac, let's start with you this time.
I think the most valuable thing is to know yourself and understand why you learn the way you learn, because once you can understand the way you learn, you can then project that onto other people. So as a teacher, when I'm teaching my students, the first thing I do when I meet a student is I assess where they sit within the world of IBA, and I can then tailor my approach to that student to get the very best out of them, because one teaching method that works with one student won't necessarily in turn work with another. And I've had great success with this, and I've had parents who've had children go through 3, 4, 5 teachers over the course of 2 years say, how have you managed to get that out of them? And it's not that I'm special, that my method is better. It is just that I understand how that individual learns and I can tailor my approach to them.
Fantastic. I just need to say to everybody that at a conservatoire level, they are also teaching. They're not just studying here. So that's what happens. I just want to say that when you say that you're teaching. So he's a student, but he does teach. Sarah?
It's definitely helped me understand myself, and another way that you can sort of apply what you've learned within the framework is when you're working with other musicians now as well. There might be a rehearsal where, I've had people go in really specifically on some details and they won't let it go until it's perfect, and you just realise that that's because that's what making them feel more comfortable. And once you know that, you can sort of begin understanding your other peers and musicians, and then when it comes to a performance, I can see that some of them need to want to chat with me, want to keep talking with me, and that's helping them feel more at ease, but it's not necessarily helping me feel more at ease. And it's trying to figure out that balance, maybe have a conversation with them and being like, I'm happy for you to talk at me, but I might not reply back.
But it gives you that confidence to have that conversation,
Yeah, exactly.
which you probably wouldn't have been able to do before.
Yeah, before I would have just been getting more and more nervous, and they're feeling great, but
You're getting more stressed
Yeah.
for the 4 months. Yeah. Camila?
Yes, so this program is definitely really, really good to get to know ourselves. And I think everyone can benefit from that. Because when we know what are our needs, we can be much more in control of a stressful situation because we know exactly how we are going to approach it. So, and that's something that everyone goes through, stressful situations in some part of their life.
Okay, thank you. So let's open up the conversation on the needs of musicians when performing at their best under pressure and maintaining levels of health and well-being. Let me just open it up to all of you. What's your take on that?
I'll just start before I put them on the spot and say something about the 4 rooms maybe and our preparation as a musician. But before I say that, I would like to just say how proud I am to hear this feedback from our students and how well the programme has helped them, because we didn't prepare them. So I'm sitting listening for the first time to these comments like you, and I'm just really glad that the hunch that Adam and I had 3 years ago has produced these results. So going back to the 4 rooms, which Adam introduced to you at the beginning, the idea of our physical, mental, emotional and spiritual selves, if you like. And we use that in the programme as we would for anybody, any human being, to look at balance in our life and making sure that we are living within those balanced 4 rooms. And then we began to realise that those 4 rooms can be applied to musicians specifically also in our practice. So in a moment, I'd like to ask our students if anything has changed in their day-to-day work. I mean, we've talked about performing on stage, but 99% of our work as musicians is not on the stage, it's in the practice room. And you see our wonderful facilities here at the Birmingham Conservatoire, and we have so many practice rooms. You won't see them all today, but corridors with pianos everywhere and practice rooms. And I don't know if it was interesting for Adam to come into the Conservatoire. We ran this programme on a Sunday afternoon, and our Conservatoire is busy. Practice rooms are full. You come here at 9 o'clock at night and our practice rooms are busy and people are practicing. And this is where we are fulfilling most of our work. So our 4 rooms as a musician, I just actually want to read you a quote by the British pianist Stephen Hough to show you a little bit how those 4 rooms go into our practice as well of what we do. So this is Stephen Hough. When you start playing music, you begin with simplicity, how to produce the notes themselves. So that's the physical room. Then you gain a sense of expression, of wanting to articulate the emotions behind the music. And then, with certain pieces, like those of late Beethoven or Schubert, or certain Mozart pieces, you have to go beyond human expressivity into an almost spiritual realm of purity or ecstasy, I suppose. So on the programme, I challenged our students to look at their practice. How much time do we as musicians spend purely thinking about the notes, our technique? If you're not a musician, we spend a lot of time as musicians worrying about our technique, how we're doing something, how we're physically playing, our posture, our muscles, our fingers, our tendons, etc. And how much do we actually work on decoding the piece that we're learning? What's behind those notes? What are we trying to say? What message are we trying to give out there? What did the composer want when he wrote or he or she wrote the piece of music? So I just wanted to, if there's any ideas from any of you, we don't have to go round with each of you, but if there's anything that's changed, yeah.
I think for me, understanding those different rooms and how they apply to practice has been fantastic. My current teacher, she likes to call what is my physical room my musical straitjacket, because my sort of obsession with perfection sometimes leaves me practicing over and over and over again, focusing on such small details that the larger picture of the piece, like the piece I played this morning, it's not just a sequence of notes that have got to be played. It's what was Mr. Bustani trying to say with his music, and it's easy for a personality like mine to lose that amidst the extreme focus on I've got to get all of these notes right or it's not going to be perfect, and being able to take a step back from that and enter the spiritual room and the emotional room a little bit more, it's made music far more enjoyable because I don't have to actually, the physical room, I've done the work there, staying in it all the time, it means that the performance is not whole, it's not complete. So having that complete end is really nice.
So that's giving you a doorway into the other rooms, is what you're saying?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Where would you think, Zac, you were spending most of your time? If you think about the 4 rooms, where do you think you were spending most of your time?
In terms of the music and the preparation, it was the physical room.
So you were predominantly in the physical room?
I was in the physical, I was practicing all the fingers, breathing, articulation, always thinking about the mechanics behind my body, the instrument, and making the sound rather than what it actually meant.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, as a musician, I'm here to communicate with you, the audience, and if I'm on stage thinking about my mechanics and my instrument, I'm not then communicating with you and I'm failing to do my job.
Sure.
So having the doorway to those rooms has allowed me to communicate far more. And music, there's that quote that music starts where words end.
Yes.
It's really, to be able to do that, it's not a black and white thing, and what the framework has allowed is a really seamless transition into those places.
So the physical room, just to put some meat on the bone there, is what we tend to look at is exercise, sleep, diet, self-care. These are the kind of things that sit in the physical room. And what you've just described is that's where you're focused on. But if I understood you correctly, you're talking about, well, if I want to talk to the audience about what Katharine is saying, what does the composer produce? What have they written? What sound am I going to give out? What voice am I going to give out? I'm not going to do it all if I'm just sitting in that physical room.
Absolutely.
And this is, if I've understood you, you've opened up.
Just like we need all 4 rooms to be a complete person, we need all 4 rooms to be a complete performance.
Okay, really interesting. Thank you. Sarah?
I've definitely begun to practice performing sort of in the practice room. I'm often just going in like, I've got these notes to learn today, I've got to get this page of a piece ready for my lesson. And that can mean that I'm just in both the physical and the mental rooms, just learning the notes, drilling them, getting them right. But actually now what I try and do is take a bit of time at the end of my practice to practice performing, switching off that side of my brain that's wanting every note to be correct, and turning, like using the emotional and the spiritual rooms more to think, what could I actually say with this? Whether it's just playing a piece that I've played a lot before and actually allowing myself to open up a more creative music side of myself, just taking that time to really go into those rooms so that when I'm on stage, it's not such a foreign concept to turn off my side of the brain that just wants everything to be perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, yeah, I was also spending a lot of time in the physical and mental room, just trying to get all the notes perfect, no mistakes. And I didn't spend almost any time in the spiritual room. And I think as artists, it's really important that we are present in the spiritual room because music is an art and we always need aspirations from outside. It can just be purely intellectual or physical. So I started not practicing, not practicing, but I still practice quite a lot. But I also started listening to, for example, quotes from other musicians. I listen to how they play, and I don't know, like documentaries about their lives. So I could also try to find my place in the spiritual room.
Beautiful,
And,
yeah.
I find
Beautiful.
it very interesting that listening to our students are actually talking about their performance, and there are similarities in personality with the students we have today. If I was to say, to give the other side of it, so we have students here who are quite detail-orientated, quite perfectionist, and they're talking about often being in the physical and mental room. I will have some students that are in the emotional room more, and they play. So they will come without the details in place. The general gist of the piece is there. They will want to go and perform this difficult piece that they can't quite manage yet. They can get the overall arch of it, and to a non-musician it might sound very impressive, but it isn't the high standard that we're requiring in their training as a student here. So with those students, I would need to attend more to those details of slowing things down, of getting things accurate, of taking longer in preparation, of raising their standards, whilst not squashing their desire to speak and communicate, but to get those things in balance. And the other thing I'm loving to hear from our students is I'm getting a sense of greater confidence in their own unique voice throughout this process, and that they are in attending to the emotional spiritual room. Even when Camila's talking about being inspired by composers and other musicians, it's, if without putting words in your mouth, it's helping you become an individual too, and where you stand. And as musicians, we need to think about the composer, the audience, and the performer, this triangle, if you like. So unless we're performing our own pieces, so the way the composer and the performer, most of us here, by and large, a lot of the time, are learning music written by somebody else. So we're the performer. There is either a live composer or has since died, and we have an audience to play to, and how to find your place within that. Okay, so you aren't just copying what somebody else might do. You aren't 100% thinking, well, what did only the composer want here? My performance is different to somebody else's. What do I add? And I think it's really great to hear. And just to give you one more quote, which I wanted to read today, which we end the programme on, and I don't know if students would like to say something afterwards, a bit about this sense of confidence in your own self and your own personal musical voice, if you like, and anything about your past experiences that might have knocked it, and now you can understand that. So again, another pianist, excuse that because I'm a pianist, this is speaking more to me. We end our programme actually with this, and it's quite a powerful quote from Stephen Kovacevic, who's quite brave in putting this out here. So he's talking about factors that helped him get over his nerves. It's well documented. He suffers quite a lot with performance anxiety. So moving on to the second factor, the first one, well, I'll read both to you, okay, but it's the second one that I'm really focusing on. So he said 2 factors helped me get over my nerves. One was getting older and not caring so much. A degree of indifference is like gold, but of course you can't pretend to be indifferent. The other thing that helped me was when I discovered that at some point in my youth, I had not felt entitled to my own feelings. If I had felt accepted as a child for everything that I did, and however well or badly I played, then I may not have developed such appalling nerves. If you can be reassured about yourself as a person, that's very important. People who are comfortable with themselves have more of a chance of surviving.
Okay, well, I think that's a fabulous place to end this panel group. And if you'd like to head out in a moment and enjoy the refreshments and come back in here at 10:45, and you'll start to hear the journey where we take a lot of the in-depth work from the Conservatoire and we embed that then into our leadership MSc module for healthcare professionals. And let's hear from them the impact it has. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for joining us today.